Islam. All right, how we doing today? How we doing today? Okay. Islam family. Um, we're gonna pick up today with where we left off at part 3B. Um, we were talking about how our European brothers and sisters were and just got here from Europe, and we were talking about the European brothers and sisters getting established here in 1776. By the way, before I start, my name is Malik Wali Obey. All right, formerly Burning Prophet Obey. I am currently headquartered at Cleveland, Ohio, Cleveland Heights, Ohio. Um, let's see here. I'm 37, and I am a Libra. That's my zodiac sign. And what this video is going to be about is basically talking about um, all the information. This is a series about all the information that I have gathered throughout the years, whether it be in school, primarily out of school when I got out of college around the age of 30, and my own personal research that I began to study out of when I got outside of 30 to up to now. And my role, my responsibility is to um, do everything I can to help aid and guide my family, my brothers and sisters, regardless of location or nationality, and share with them the knowledge, the science, the truth of who we are as a people, as a being, what we have done to put ourselves in a situation and where we are in now, where we are now, currently, and where we will be going in the future. Okay? I hear a lot talking about the term that I'm going to specifically talk about today is black and white. You see a lot of people walking around calling themselves black, white, brown, or yellow, crayon that doesn't exist with the human family at all, okay? That's the main reason, okay? But I can't just go into that without speaking on the history of where these terms came from, who came up with these terms, and why they came up with them. All right. Thus, I must give the true history of the family and what happened, a brief summary of what happened first. And after I introduce and present the summary, then I can go into detail about the terms and why they were created and how they're used and how we can go about better to improve ourselves, better ourselves, perfect ourselves. Okay? So this is the purpose of this video. Now I would like it to be 30 minutes, but sometimes once you get going, that 30 minutes can turn into an hour very fast. Okay? So I would try my best to keep it brief, but knowing me, it's gonna be like an hour or something, maybe a little bit longer. So I'm gonna do my best, okay? Um, but this information must be out there. I have to get it out there, okay? This video is for everybody, all viewers. I welcome everybody to watch and enjoy this video. This is for the whole family as a whole, the whole world, okay? I have nothing to hide. I have no reason not to share it with everybody. Okay? There's no emotion. I guarantee you I will not be portraying any emotion as I go through the story. And I will not be putting out no opinions as I tell the story. My job is to share the story. Present the facts as facts. Alright? Opinions are opinions, emotions are emotions, but that has no say-so on what I'm presenting to you right now. It has no say-so whatsoever. Okay? I want to make that very clear to my brothers and sisters. Islam? Islam. Okay. Now, also, I know sometimes I can stumble upon my words. I don't have a mic on me or nothing like that, so I know it might be difficult to hear me at times, and I know I don't always enunciate. And sometimes when I get rolling, okay, I might speak a lot of words, one after the other, without stopping and breathing. So I must make sure to do that. Okay. Um, this is part 4. Um, I'm a little new at this, so please bear with me as I get acclimated and being comfortable about sitting in front of the camera and talking to the camera, talking to my brothers and sisters through the camera with all love, with no emotion and no opinion. Islam, Islam. So just bear with me, okay? Um, and with that being said, I give honor to all my teachers who I learned from. My brother, of course, he didn't talk no details, but he dropped a few clues up in there. But primarily my teachers was Brother Taj Tariq Bey. He's situated out in there in Camden, New Jersey. All right, by New York, Philadelphia. My brother Hakim Bey. He was in New York. He might be in Arizona now. My brother Dr. Alim El Bey. You see his book right there, First World Order. And that's what I read a lot. Okay. That's my brother right there. That's my teacher. He is stationed in North Carolina. Then you have Queen Valahara and a few other teachers that I learned from. And of course the Empress, the Queen, 30R, CTR, Ghost in El Bay. Of course, I gotta give honor and respect to her. And with all that being said, there's some European bros out there that dropping knowledge too. Like I'm not gonna James Churchward and Barry Fell, Harvard professor, and there's some brothers out there that's doing it too. So that must be said, okay? Okay. With that being said, we will pick up. We will have a phone. Okay. Um, let's see here. So we was at 1492. They got here at 16. Okay, so we're gonna pick up with the Constitution. The Constitution, around 1776. Now, as we all know, when we taught you in school, that the Constitution came from the Europeans created the Constitution from Benjamin Franklin, George Washington. It was all there signing it in Philadelphia, right? But we all know that's not the case. And there's many books that's out now, like Indian Givers and that talk about the truth about how it was the Moors here, falsely called Indians, all right, who came up with the Constitution. And the Constitution is actually the Iroquois Confederation, Guyana Shigawa, the Great Law, the Great Peace. And the Guyana Shigawa with the 5 tribes, the Seneca, Allegheny, Iroquois, Mohawk, Aniaga, and Onondaga. All right, 6 tribes. First 5, then Mohawk became 6. And these tribes were all in New York, Canada, Philadelphia, Ohio region, and they were trying to figure out how to work together, how they govern themselves. And each tribe had a role, each tribe had a position, but they all come together every few years to discuss the matters as a collective. And that was presented to our European brothers and sisters, Ben Franklin, George Washington, and them. And they then adopted that for their constitution, for the order that they were trying to create. Because you got to understand that, remember, In 1776, before it started, before the Continental Congress, 1774, and all of that, before any of that stuff was going on, you got to understand England was the main player, and the 13 colonies came from England. And the 13 colonies were Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Delaware, Boston, New York, Maine, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, okay, and a few others, okay. Connecticut, they were all subject to the king in England. At the time, with the king in England at the time, his name was King James. No, King James was 1500. King George, 1700. Okay, King George and King Charlotte, who were also Moors, by the way. Okay, and they were all subject. And the Europeans would get a charter from the king to open up a colony in one of these areas. And these colonies are joint stock corporations. All right, where the investment, where the people in Parliament will invest into the people, and the people will work. All right. Well, the people in Parliament, if the people didn't have no money to pay their trip, then the people in Parliament would pay the trip, pay the government in England for the person or the servant, indentured servitude, that's what it was, the indentured servant, to get on the boat and travel to America. And once they got to America, then they would be allocated to what job they was going to have. Would there be a plantation owner? That would be like a governor. Or will it be like a plantation worker? That's like a farmer. Or will it be what you call them, a carpenter, where you build the houses, or work the ships or something like that. Okay, so regardless of the position that they had, okay, regardless of the position that they all had to answer to the King of England. They were all subject to. Okay, all of their finances some went back to the colony to keep it going, but a large majority went back to the king. Okay. So they were the investors, and the stock was the people. The stock wasn't the commodity, because they did not have any. How can you say they did not have any rights on the wheat, the lumber, the tobacco, the sugar, the furs, or any other commodity that they were trying to get. They didn't have any of that. They had no rights to that. So what they were trying to do was, use it. So that's what the treaties with the Moors, falsely called Indians, came from. Okay, because you got to remember that the people here are not Indians. The Europeans called them Indians, just like the Europeans called the Moors and Hindustan Indians. Right, but we're not Indians, just like we're not Africans, and we're not Negro, and we're not black. We're going to get into that later. But I got to tell the story first. Okay? So, it's very important to understand that it was the Moors here, falsely called Indians, who gave their government, or our government, to our European brothers and sisters, and then they adopted that format. Okay, and out of that format became the Continental Congress. Okay, and out of that format became the United States Corporation. Okay, now before we get into all of that, you got to understand that it was the Moors here that wrote the Constitution. The Europeans didn't write the Constitution either. All right. The Continental Congress was 55 members, 35 Moors, 20 European sons. All right. Wasn't no women involved. All right. It was just the sons, even though the women would play a very important role later. okay? Because you can't do nothing without the women. You ain't gonna have no children. You ain't not gonna be able to flourish without the woman, okay? So the woman's role will become very important later, okay? But right now, the first wave of European brothers and sisters, there was some women there too, but the first wave of talking about the Continental Congress and getting this United States corporation off the ground was the men, okay? And when the men was getting together, it's both, but I'm primarily focusing on the brothers' role right now. And the men's role was to, um, find an agreement because they was just coming out of the Barbary conflicts with Tunis, Tripoli, Algiers, and Morocco on the other side of the water. Talking about right below the Mediterranean and right below Paris, not Paris, I'm sorry, right below Spain and Portugal, and then you got Italy down there and Greece down there, and you got Turkey down there, right? So out of all of that, okay, you had the Mediterranean, then you had the Moorish states, right? And then you got Egypt on there. So out of all of these states, you know what I'm saying, the Europeans had conflicts. All right, there wasn't Arabs. All right, it wasn't Arabs. Okay, we were talking about the Moors. All right, even though they called us Arabs too, but that's not where we're going right now. Okay, and so they was coming with these Barbary conflicts, and the Barbary conflicts was not allowing the European brothers and sisters to travel back and forth. You know what I'm saying? So they was just getting out of that. They was still in it actually, and they was like, well, we gotta find an agreement with these Moors so we can begin to travel freely and things like that. And that's where the Continental Congress on this side got started. And then from this Continental Congress, all right, with the Moors and the Europeans here, and then that's who created the Declaration of Independence, where they're trying to get themselves away from England. Okay, England didn't like that, and that's what started the revolution. All right, they were trying to force the European brothers and sisters back into servitude. Okay, the European brothers and sisters wasn't trying to hear it. Okay, so you gotta understand. And then that's when some of us went and helped them during that civil conflict. Revolution. Okay, and then out of the revolution came the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, 1789. All right, and that's because of us, because the Moors in Africa was not trying to have the Europeans do whatever they wanted to do because they had the markets over there. You know what I'm saying? So they wasn't interested. But we here, we was like, no, it's cool with us. It ain't no big deal. We have no issue with that. Okay? So the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, all right, 1789. After, you got to understand the sequence. So you got the Continental Congress with the Moors here, 1774. And out of that, then you have the Declaration of Independence, 1776. All right. Then you have the articles. I'm sorry, that's not right. You have the Continental Congress. Then you have the Articles of Association, 1774. Yes. That's when they're like Articles of Association. They're going to associate. They're going to complete and band together. All right. But oh no, that's Federation. Articles of Association was like, all right, we're not going to buy no more tea from England. That came first. And we don't want to buy no sugar from the Barbados, the Spanish colonies. We're going to stay away from the Barbados down there in Mexico and the Cuba. And we want to stay away from England. We don't want your tea in the harbor, Boston Tea Party, all of that. We don't want to have nothing to do with that. So we're going to, Articles of Association is that public declaration in England, like we're going to do our own thing now. Because we with these Moors here, falsely called Indians. All right. Then you have the Articles of Confederation. They're like, all right, we're going to band together now as one. The 12 at the time was like 8 or 9. We're going to band as one now. We're going to function as one unit. Articles of Confederation. Then after that, then they had Declaration of Independence. Or they're going to declare independent from England. and listed all of those because you're treating us like this, making us pay taxes, no representation in Parliament, all of these things. All right. Then out of that, then you had the Treaty of Peace and Friendship with Morocco, 1789. Okay. And then you had the revolution. And then, you know, after the revolution was done, 1783, you had the Treaty of Paris, right? And Treaty of Paris is basically England, like, all right, I recognize you, but I still want my percentage, but I recognize you. You know, you can do your own thing. You know what I'm saying? That's Treaty of Paris, 1793. Okay. 1783 came first, and then 1793. Okay. So then, now we're moving into the 1800s. It's been 20 minutes. Now we're moving into the 1800s. So you get the Louisiana Purchase and all of that. So we're going to move forward up to the civil conflict now. Lincoln. And this is where everything changed. All right. All the houses that you see, the royalty in Europe and the royalty and the Moorish royalty, where you got King George and King James and the Moors in Europe, there was royalty there first. All right. And then they got pulled out their houses, and the Europeans began to assume those positions and keep their names. Right. So that's what was going on in the 1800s. The changing. Okay. Then here with Lincoln, the same thing was going on here too. Because they wanted Lincoln. Lincoln was elected under the Republic. And Lincoln was like, okay, well, we want you, Lincoln, to do what we want you to do. And Lincoln was like, no, I made an oath on this Constitution, and I'm going to stand on the Republic, and I'm going to look out for the Moors as well as the Europeans. I'm going to look out for both because I have an oath to both. And they wanted Lincoln to undermine that oath and bring in the democracy, right? That's what they wanted him to do, okay? And Lincoln was like, no, I'm not going to do that. They're like, well, and then they started threatening him, like, well, if you don't do it, I'm going to come after you, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And Lincoln was like, well, do what you got to do. I mean, we've been dealing with this since George Washington, since Thomas Jefferson, since John Adams. He was like, this ain't nothing new. So do what you got to do. I'm going to do what I got to do. And that's when Lincoln put out that 40 acres and a mule, and he put out his proclamation where he transferred the property from the corporate family to the corporate states. All right, that's what you call in that inaugural address. All right, and then Lincoln put out that 13th Amendment, was that Negroes can't be in servitude. You know what I'm saying? Lincoln's doing all these things. Then he started printing his own money. All of these things got those who were trying to infiltrate upset with Lincoln because he wasn't doing what they wanted him to do, bringing the democracy by bringing in the central bank. And Lincoln was like, I'm not going to bring in your central bank. I'm not going to bring in no democracy. I'm going to do what I'm here to do. And so they infiltrated that, tried to get rid of him. And then they brought in someone else. 1860. And this is where everything shifted. Now they're starting to call, you got the Ku Klux Klan around that time. But they were like, okay, we're going to call ourselves white people now. Before that, they wasn't calling themselves white. They were calling themselves either Christians or Europeans or Protestants or Pilgrims. But they wasn't calling themselves white folks in the early 1800s. That happened in the mid 1800s. All right? So now it's 1870. Right, 1880, 1870 to reincorporate Washington, D.C. 1880s. Right, they had a Berlin conference where they start to divide up. Okay, this is how we're gonna do this. I'm gonna have this section. England gonna have this section. Germany gonna have this section. Spain gonna have that section. Right. Then they had 1890s. That's when you get the Rockefeller education system, first of all, the Reconstruction, where they had to reconstruct. We had to make up a new history because we can't tell the people what the truth is, because they're not going to be able to take advantage of them. Okay, and then you had the what you call next? Um, 1903, the education system, Rockefeller education system, where they were going to disseminate this knowledge to the school system. And then they brought in the 1913, they brought in the central bank, Federal Reserve Bank, 1913, IRS, Internal Revenue Service, 1913, right? Then 1928, you had the stage bankruptcy. They called it depression. Well, no depression. It was the stage bankruptcy. They had to bring it all down, take the gold out the hands of everybody, and bring in the credit, the fiat, all right? The paper credit first, okay? And then 1933, that's when they made the House Joint Resolution, all right? But it took off the gold standard, right, officially. And then 1940, the Buck Act. And you had the 50 with the Civil Rights Movement and all of that, getting the Moors who are compromised to start taking the term of black and Negro, right? And then all of this is after the infiltration is taking place, okay? So you got to understand now everybody got what? Credit card numbers now. Social Security Act, right? That happened in the 1940s, right? So now everybody got a credit card number. Everybody has a Social Security number. Everybody got a credit card number, right? Because now we're not dealing with substance anymore. We're dealing with credit. We're dealing with, right? That's why the country's in debt now. The debt's not real. It's made up. But that's the only way they can continue to function and still have people in involuntary servitude because it doesn't really exist anymore. All right, the United States as it was doesn't exist anymore. It only exists on paper, right? But there's no substance to back that up anymore. So that's where you have all this fighting, not fighting, but that's where you have all this military stuff going on, right? WW1, WW2, Korea War, Vietnam War, Iraq, Afghanistan, all this stuff. But now they're trying to fix it. 1980s, 1990s. They're trying to fix it now. Rights of indigenous peoples. Now is the age where you're trying to get this thing corrected. Okay? They will help. Our European brothers and sisters will help because they can't get out of it unless they help. They have to tell the truth. Right? But they can't actually fix it because they didn't make it. Alright? We have to fix it. We have more. It's our responsibility as Moors to fix this thing. Because we are the ones who made it. We are the aboriginal indigenous ones of the planet. We've always been here and we will always be here. It's our job to fix. Okay? So, this is the process of doing that. Alright? So now I would like to go into detail about these terms of black and white. First, I had to give the story first, and then a general summary of what happened, why it happened. All right, I'm not trying to convince anybody. I'm not trying to get any converts. You don't have to believe our word I say. All right. This is just from the information that I have. I'm just sharing the information that was brought to me that I found in books that I've studied and studied and studied for years. Okay. And this is what I found, and I'm sharing it with everyone else to what I have found. That's all I'm doing, family. That's all. So, from that point, let's start. Well, you term black. Now, the term black came about with the turn of the century. Okay, when you had, after the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, all right, because everybody understands this as Moors at that time. In the 1700s, everybody understands that when you're a European Moor, they called you Black or Moor. You're in Africa, they called you Moroccan or Moabite or Arab or Muslim or any of those other terms, right? When you come to here to America, they commonly use the term Indian, but you're not Indians either. You're Moors too. You're the Moors of the Western Hemisphere, and then you have the Moors of the Eastern Hemisphere. Remember, this continent was once one. It didn't separate no 1,020,000. That's what they tell you. 25 billion years ago, North America separated. No, they didn't. North America and South America did not separate from Africa and Europe until 2,500 years ago, 3,500 years ago, 1,500 BC to be exact. According to the records that I have read, but Immanuel Velikovsky, another European brother, brilliant brother, who wrote upon the research he found in our records. Okay? So you got to understand that. Okay? Well, I have to understand that. So the brother made these records. Okay? We've made these records. Okay? And, okay, it's very important to understand that. It's very important to understand that. Islam